Oh, this is going to be an active show. I just know it. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Debbie Georgiani with Jerry Usher. And as we've been saying for 7+ years, you are the person we want to hear from. So start dialing this number, because when Jerry asks the question, you are going to weigh in on it. I just know, because I was thinking about it all last night, Jerry, and I could think of 5 circumstances that pertain to this question. And I want to talk about it. I know you do, Jerry, because you have several names attached to you. So here's the number, folks, and then Jerry will ask the question. Start dialing now. You'll definitely want to weigh in on this. 833-288-3986.
Yeah, very simple question today, and we want to hear how you were named, if you were named after one of your parents, after a grandparent. We would love to hear from you. A lot of people have that tradition, sometimes a very long history of naming their kids after other members of the family to honor those members of the family and really as a great gift to the ones that they are naming. So, yeah, do join us. If you or a sibling or someone you know was named after one of your parents or maybe a grandparent, an uncle, an aunt, somebody like that, call us and join the conversation, 833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986.
Jerry, go ahead and share with our Take Two family. You have many names.
Yeah, I can mention most of them on the air. Yeah, I actually have 2 middle names. Well, yeah, it was named Gerard after Saint Gerard because my mother could not have children for many years, and through the intercession of Saint Gerard, and actually she was I think she said she was an alcoholic, and she gave up drinking as a kind of a gift to the Lord to be able to have kids. Never touched a drop of alcohol in the last like 50 years of her life or so. But so she had Mary first, my sister, so she named her after Blessed Mother, and then Saint Gerard, who's the patron saint of mothers and expectant mothers and so forth. I got his name and one each from 2 of my grandfathers, Joseph and Harrison. They called the latter Grandpa Harry. I'm sorry to say I never really knew either of my grandfathers, and I only knew one of my grandmothers. But yeah, I have the 2 middle names, Gerard, Joseph, Harrison, Usher, the 2 middle names after my 2 grandfathers.
Okay, and Joseph is your maternal grandfather, or which one?
Oh, you would ask me that.
On air. So you only have 2 seconds to answer. Yeah. Well, we'll think about it for a minute, but let me ask you this question. So Mary, the firstborn, got named after the Blessed Mother. You got 2 grandfather's middle name, you got as your middle name, and then your mom had 3 more boys after you, correct? Okay, did they get anything special, or did they just get a name out of the hat?
Well, I don't know if there were family members with these names, but my brother next to me is Joseph Edward, and then John Francis and James William. So yeah.
Okay, that is really interesting, and we have a William Edward in our family too. Isn't that interesting?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, more connections. Wow. So that's really cool, Jerry, that you got. So when you put a middle name down, do you just put the first name?
I usually just use Joseph, or the initial J. Yeah, I go with Joseph. Yeah. Okay,
gotcha. All right, very interesting. So how about you, dear? It's a very sad story. I don't want to talk about it. No, I'm just teasing. I'll talk about it. We want to hear from you. We have a couple open phone lines. If you or one of your siblings were named after parents or grandparents, or there's an interesting story behind it, please call in right now. Fill up those last phone lines. Matt Kabinski just loves to answer your call at 833-288-3986. And Jeff Burson, our social media manager, is at Facebook and YouTube, and he's willing to get your stories there. Ace McKay is at the controls. He's our incredible producer. So everything's all in place. We're here. Now we just are waiting for you. 833-288-3986. Okay, I'll tell you the story real quick. So my sister Mary Ann is the firstborn of 6, and she got Mary Ann. Go figure. I mean, come on, that's amazing. So but she was named after the Blessed Mother, but also my grandmother's name is Mary, my mom's mom. Okay, so she was named after. Okay, my brother, my 2 sisters, they were names that my mother really loved. But my brother, the firstborn boy, got my dad's. He's a junior, so he's named after my dad, William Edward. Okay, so pretty interesting, huh? And then my brother, Michael, is named after my grandfather, Michael, who was dying at the time when my mother was carrying my brother, Michael. And she promised to name if it was a boy, she promised to name him Michael, and she named him Michael after my grandfather, her father. Okay. And then I came along. They had no name for me. Nothing. They didn't know what to call me. I know. I don't know what they were going to call me. So my mother went to our Jewish next door neighbor, Mrs. J, and said, I don't know what to name this baby. And she said, name her Deborah. And then my uncle, I talk about him all the time, who's the priest, my mother's brother, he said, Deborah is a great, strong name from the Old Testament. He gave my mother a whole understanding of Deborah in the Old Testament. So that's why I got Deborah. And then, of course, my mother named me Anne after the Blessed Mother's mother. So there you go. I'm not named after anybody in the family, but I'm named after a very strong woman in the Old Testament.
Indeed. Wow. What an amazing story. I did not know that your mother was kind of at a loss for a name for you, but it worked out well. Yeah.
I said, Mom, what were you going to do? Just call me like it or something? Like, what were you going to do? She started laughing. She goes, no, we had no name.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me when I was getting ready to play Little League Baseball, you had to prove your age, that you were under a certain age. And so we went to get my birth certificate, and there was no record of my birth even. The hospital had no record of my birth whatsoever. Oh. So, I've recovered for the most part from the trauma of that at this point in my life.
So, but how did you get a record of your birth? What did they do?
I think they finally, managed to put the puzzle pieces together or something. Yeah, but yeah.
Wow, he really is born, folks. He's here. He really does exist. There is a record of his birth.
Yeah.
What?
I'm a phantom. Yeah, a ghost.
You went through therapy, I'm sure.
Yeah,
to get over
years
that
of
traumatic experience. Yeah.
No, I was too young to,
No surprise, Jerry. Full phone lines here on Take Two. You're going to have stories about your name or your siblings or how it came to be. And here's the interesting thing about it. Names are very important. Names are important in the Bible. Okay. Do you live up to that name of that person that you were named after? I mean, very interesting. Do you identify with the patron of that saint that you were named after? How about you've got a very unique name and you're thinking, I want something that has a little more of a biblical basis. Let's talk about it. 833-288-3986. That's what confirmation names are for.
Yeah. As Debbie mentioned, Makubensky is going fast and furious on the phones. If you're calling and you get through, there's a little bit of a waiting area, kind of a green room. We have the 6 lines that are full and ready to go with Michael and Tina and Robert. And the others here are you or one of your siblings named after a parent, a grandparent, or, who is it that you're named for? And do you really appreciate the name you were given? 833-288-3986.
Father John Ricardo, Colleen Kelly Mast, Chris Stefanik.
The leading Catholic voices are on the largest Catholic media network in the world. You're listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
Look at the little flower. I am not the little flower, I'm Italian. She was French. She was meek. I'm hot-tempered. She was very lovey-dovey. To me, let's get on with this show. You got something to do, do it. I look at the Lord sometimes in the Pesach when I say, Lord, I wish I could think of all the things the saints thought of. I always tell you gushy. St. Gertrude and St. McShield. Is there a place up there, Lord, for just ordinary people? People that get up in the morning kind of grouchy and go to bed the same way, I mean, there has to be a lot of those kind of people up there,
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
On EWTN Radio Essentials, listen for the Mass every 2 hours, plus rosaries, chaplets, Stations of the Cross, and other devotionals. EWTN Radio Essentials is on the EWTN app and at EWTN.com.
Thanks for being with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. And you have shown up in force today, and we're going to get to your phone calls about our names here in just a moment. But I want to make sure you don't miss the latest political and cultural reporting and analysis on topics of interest to Catholics and people of faith on the world over with Raymond Arroyo. And get the news from the world over in your email inbox every week. To sign up today, visit EWTN.com and click on subscribe, and you will get the world over email in your inbox like Debbie and I do.
So before we get to Michael, I should probably share this because I think it's an interesting story. Well, for me anyway. My first son, Daniel, is named after both my father-in-law and my dad. So my son, Daniel Daniel was my father-in-law's first name, and then my dad is William. Now, my former husband was Jewish, and in the Jewish tradition, you're not to name after the living. Okay, you're not to name after the living. That is correct. So it's kind of taboo. So, but they were Reformed Jews, and so they got permission from the rabbi because Reformed Jews tend to do things just a little bit differently, and they got permission, and so we were able to name Daniel, even though my father-in-law was still living. So it was a great honor that he got to experience that because there was something never experienced. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So that's really neat. And then my second son got my mother-in-law's maiden name as her middle name because it's such a cool name, Traeger. I think it's a real cool name. So I named Matthew Traeger. But yeah, it's cool. And then I should mention Marty because he's listening to the show. You brought up Gerard about praying to Saint Gerard to be able to have children. The same thing happened with Marty's mom. She prayed to Saint Gerard and she made a promise to Saint Gerard that if she had boys, she would name them all the middle name Gerard. So she did. She ended up having 3 boys, and they're all middle names are Gerard. So it's Martin Gerard, Doug Gerard, and Jeffrey Gerard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, isn't that cool? So you hear these stories, and they're really cool with the thought process that goes behind it, and then you get to my story, and there was no thought process at all.
Well, let's see what Michael has to share with us listening to St. Paul Radio in West Virginia. Hi, Michael. Thanks. You called in first, so you get to go first.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, thank you. Hey, how are you guys?
Good.
Good. Thanks for taking my call. Traveling back to Virginia and listening to the show, and wanted to share it real quickly how I named my 2 sons. I was raised in a family full of girls. I have 3 older sisters. My father was a junior, however, and he had a very unique middle name, and that was Othniel. Never heard of it, never had seen it, could barely even spell it. But he said, well, we named you Michael John. Your grandmother helped with that. Obviously, we're going to find John in the Bible quite a bit, maybe. And I'm a 60s baby, so it's pretty common. But my father was just really saying, I just couldn't make you the third. I just couldn't give you that name. Not to turn the story sad, but my father passed from cancer when I was 18, and I wanted to honor him. When I eventually had children, and he would put the pressure on jokingly that you're the last boy, you're the last Hunley and the whole clan, you're all your sisters, so you have the name, and you're going to have to get married and have boys. No pressure there. So I knew I wanted to honor him, and though my wife wasn't willing to use the exact name that he had, nor was I did give my oldest son, Robert Owen, his initials. So my oldest son has my father's initials, and then my youngest son has my father-in-law's initials. So we wanted to honor both of the fathers in the family that way by giving them the initials of their grandfathers. So neither of them got to meet my dad, unfortunately. But they do have the one grandfather, my father-in-law. So that's our story, and it's just kind of unique because I was not going to be a third with that crazy middle name of my dad's. But my sons both have the initials, and they can carry on both sides of the family with my wife's side being honored as well. So I just thought I'd call and share it. Yeah. Yeah,
thanks. Well, you know what? I didn't quite get that unique middle name of your dad. What was that, Michael, again?
Othniel. I believe it's spelled Othneil, and he was a junior.
Okay.
So yeah. Very, very interesting.
Debbie and I both take notes as the show's going on with each call, and I wrote down oatmeal. I thought you said oatmeal, and so I was going to say that is unique, But
very unique.
Yeah, I love when when there are juniors and thirds and fourths and so forth. I always when I was hoping to get married earlier in my life, I was definitely going to have a junior. I was definitely going to have, if I had a boy, Debbie, it was going to be Gerard Joseph Harrison Usher Jr. But you know what? My sister-in-law, who lives close to you in Phoenix, and my brother John, they named their son Luke Joseph Harrison Usher after me. So, so it's kind of a junior.
What an honor. Yeah. Yeah, that is beautiful. Well, Michael and Jerry, I want to say, as you were speaking about naming after people, and I couldn't help but think of, the commandments, honor your father and mother. And, when we do such and you use the word honor, to give honor, to give, recognition, right? When we are living out the commandments, we are honoring God. We are doing what God has commanded. And I think, we may think it's, when we were talking, Michael, about the initials and everything, and having a junior and having this and having that, and it all sounds good and it kind of fits in, and it's kind of something a real thing to have at holiday parties, right? Where you're talking about things and you're having these great conversations and say, hey, do you know how this one's named and their initials and stuff like that? But in reality, it really is a glorifying of God when you think about it. How beautiful it is that you are honoring people's names, the people who have left an impression, the legacy of your family. I mean, it's incredible, and I love that we do that in our faith with the saints. We do that with biblical names, and we do that with family members. Michael, way to go! And by the way, Michael, you have a very strong name. It is one of my favorite names in all of, everything I've ever studied is Michael is very, very strong. I hope you realize how powerful your name is.
I try to, and not remind the wife, because she'll keep me on level key. But it is a very powerful name, and I know my grandmother. On my mother's side was very instrumental in naming me, and my sisters are Terry, Tammy, and Tracy.
Oh,
so I dodged Thomas, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Nana was heavily involved with naming me.
Yeah, beautiful.
I love
Thanks,
it.
Michael, for contributing to the show
Michael.
today. Appreciate it so much. Yeah, you mentioning the initials. My sister Mary, but her middle name was Judith, and then you got Judith, Jerry, Joe, John, Jim. So
I know all the J's.
They were in the J's, yeah.
Well, you got how we used to write JMJ on the top of our papers.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
So you were talking about a junior, naming somebody after the father, and then they become a junior or a third or down the line. My brother, like I said, is a junior. He's named after my dad, and my dad died on his birthday, on my brother's birthday. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So
powerful.
talk about the irony of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So be careful what you name people. You could have a death associated with that same. It's interesting though. I don't know if that sits too well with my brother. I mean, that's kind of a hard thing to remember. But let's hear what Tina has to say our friend Tina in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, on Alexa. Hi, Tina. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Hi.
Good.
Good.
So glad you called.
I'm so happy to hear from you guys and be with you guys, and you guys are my life right now. Seriously. Both of my grandparents on my mom's side died within 2 months of each other. So we've had a rough spring and summer. But anyway, what I wanted to say was, when I was talking to my mom, I have trouble with grief a lot. My mom's just there all the time. So when I was talking to my mom, she said that my middle name, Marie, was named after my mother's middle. Or no, her mother named her. How does this work? Sorry, not good at math. Her mother named her middle name Marie, and then she named my name after that. So my middle name is Marie too.
Tina, wow, Tina Marie. Well, it's so good to hear from you, Tina, and we pray for you every day, and we know you pray real hard for the Take Two family. What a beautiful middle name, Marie. I mean, it's a derivative of Mary. That is just absolutely fantastic, and it's interesting. So I guess you're sort of a second generation Marie, if I have that right. Your grandmother named your mom middle name Marie, and then your mom gave you that same middle name too. So.
But is Tina short for Christina? Tina?
No.
No. Okay.
No,
Okay.
my parents, I asked them about that one day. I'm like, what are you doing naming me Tina? I mean, seriously, like not that I'm against that.
You're so sweet.
But we were just having a conversation. And she said, because of my disability, I was born premature.
Oh.
So I was way tiny when I was born.
Sure.
They
I see it.
named me
I see the
Tina
connection.
because I was tiny.
Right. Oh, how precious.
That is
That's
precious,
precious. Well, Tina, let me just share something with you. You started off the conversation saying that, we're here for you, but you're here for us. Okay. This is a mutual type of effort that we support one another. Okay. We're sisters and brothers in Christ, and it's a beautiful thing. And we really are family. You know, when Jerry and I talk about the Take Two family, we really and truly believe it. So, Tina, you are a precious member of the family, and we love you to pieces.
Thank you. I love you guys, too.
Oh, thank you, Tina. That's very beautiful. Love your heart. Love your contributions to the program. Thank you for calling in today, Tina Marie. And have a beautiful and blessed day. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, full phone lines here, and they're filling up fast. I just have to say this. This is hilarious. Jeff Burson, our social media manager, said he was. Is it true that named after my father's first dog? He was named after his father's first dog.
That's what he typed over, yeah.
His
He
dog.
didn't
His
say what that
father's
name
first
was.
dog's name
Jeff,
was
I
Jeff.
guess. Jeff or Jeffrey, yeah.
You knew? Okay, well, I have to tell you something funny. You know, I had Gracie, right? And she died last year. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many people came up to me in the course of her 14 years and said they named their child Grace or their middle name Grace because of our dog Gracie?
Is that right?
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So now I don't know if anybody's going to name after Duke.
Yeah, I don't know, because I spell it D-U-C. I don't know if anybody will do that.
That's the Latin for the phrase.
I think it's kind of French, maybe. But,
French.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to Robert in Dallas, listening to us today on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Robert. Thanks for your patience. Welcome.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, not at all. I'm happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
My story is, I'll try to condense it and make it quick, so I'll talk fast, so follow me on it.
Okay.
It's about how a certain name came into my family. I'm Italian on both sides. And on my mother's side, my mom's name was Vincenza, or Vincent, the female version of Vincent, if you will.
Right.
And that name hadn't existed earlier, but I had an uncle named Vincent. My grandfather was Vincent. Another cousin was Vincent. All of a sudden, there were lots of Vincents or Vincenzos and Vincenzas in the family. So one year, I was speaking to a very, very old friend of the family, knew my grandparents, and she told me a story I had never heard in all my years about how that name came into the family. So here it goes. They lived in Sicily. My great-grandfather was kind of a handyman, art restorer in that era. He just did what he could around the church, kind of a docent at the church. And he was on a scaffolding repairing a painting in the little church down the street from their home. My great-grandmother was expecting a child. He was at home with some of the ladies in town having, coffee and cookies or something. And all of a sudden, she stopped in the middle of the conversation with these ladies. She had some sort of a premonition, and the way it was told to me, of course, was that her guardian angel had alerted her that there was something happening. She stopped in the middle of the conversation. She said, "Ladies, we have to go down to the church. My husband is in trouble." Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of an emotional story every time I tell it. But anyway, so she runs down the street with these ladies in tow. She bursts into the church, just in time to see my great-grandfather hanging from the scaffolding where he was working on it to restore this painting high up on the wall. He's hanging from the scaffolding by a piece of rope from his neck, soaking. And she and the ladies run over to him and get him down just in time, who had preached in that territory during his lifetime. And so, of course, it was a natural thing that she should name that child Vincent, since it was through his intercession that great-grandfather's life was saved.
Wow. Hang on. Pause right there, Robert. This is a fascinating story. Beautiful. I was wondering which St. Vincent it was, and St. Vincent Ferrer came to my mind because a lot of people would think St. Vincent de Paul maybe initially or something. So we want to hear the rest of the story, Robert, as Paul Harvey used to say, so stay with us. And hang in there, Jeannie and Brian and Christine and Suzanne. We're going to get to all of you today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you.
Yes.
This is a Messy Family Minute with Mike and Alicia Hernan. Teaching kids to handle money can be tricky for parents. In our own experience of raising 10 children, we've used envelopes, allowances, and more. Well, here's a tip from what we've discovered. There is a sensitive period for money when kids are about 10 to 12 years old. Be alert to when your child expresses interest, and then take advantage of that teachable moment.
Don't pay kids to do household chores because they need to understand the importance of contributing to the home. However, we have found it is a good idea to pay for extra chores. Give your child a chance to earn money, whether by raking leaves, moving stones, or deep cleaning a room. In addition, a great job could earn a bonus. This trains them in excellence and gets them ready for work outside the home.
Giving your children experiencing earning money is important because this is your time to train them to save, to budget, and to tithe, which is giving money away because it ultimately comes from God. To listen to our podcast on kids and money, visit us at messyfamilyminute.org.
Want to be notified when Take Two with Jerry and Debbie goes live on Facebook? Follow EWTN Radio's Facebook page and click the bell icon to be notified.
Hi, I'm Father Mitch Packman. I'm going to be at the EWTN Family Celebration in Phoenix, Arizona. Hope to see you there.
Make your plans now to attend the EWTN Family Celebration October 1st at the Phoenix Convention Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Find out how you can be a part at EWTN.com/family celebration.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett, Jimmy Aiken today on Catholic Answers Live for 2 hours of open forum, and he'll take any question you've got. Catholic Answers Live, 6 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you, and we're talking with Robert in Dallas about the name Vincent and how many family members going back quite a ways had some form of that name. And Vincent, what an amazing story. And you were talking about how I think you said your great-grandfather, they got to the church just in time. He was hanging around with a rope around his neck, not trying to take his own life, but just by accident. So if you want to kind of complete that story there, we'd love to have you do that.
Sure. There's not much more other than just that was the start of having Vincent, the name Vincenzo or Vincent in my family. And now, I have nieces and nephews and brothers, and, it's all over in our family. And I don't even know if any of them know that story yet. I've yet to be able to tell it to them. But I was shocked and in tears, of course, when I'm hearing this after all these years from a close friend of the family who was privy to it. And I've been now to the town and visited that church and seen that painting. And so, it just comes full circle. It's very emotional and just that's a tradition anyway among Italians, especially if Catholics, to use saints and particular events like that to use to name a child. So it came easily.
Yeah. Robert, I got very emotional as you were telling the story for many reasons. As you probably know this if you listen to the show on a regular basis, I'm 100% Sicilian. So I can totally relate to Sicilians are very, very passionate people. We love hard. We play hard. We can even get angry in a in a very quick way. We're very passionate people, and also with that is a hypersensitive state of being maybe even sometimes in tune, more so with the spirit sometimes. And it sounds like in your family situation, your grandmother. It's your grandmother, correct, Robert? Your grandmother.
Grandmother. Yeah, great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother. Okay, your great-grandmother had the inspiration from the Holy Spirit, ran to the church, and then honored the saint that saved, to help save your family, really. When you think about it, there's a whole legacy attached to this. So I just wanted to say, first of all, I love the fact that you told the story on air to the whole entire world. You always have this that you can listen to and share with your family. St. Vincent Ferrer is obviously a patron of your family. And I just wanted to say, you may or may not know this, but when Jerry and I talk to family members of the Take Two family that have kids or grandkids that have left the faith, we always talk about St. Vincent Ferrer, about how he said, when you have given your kids the sacraments, when you have raised them in the faith, if they walk away, don't let your hearts get troubled. Don't feel that, agitation inside. Just take comfort in knowing that, have peace. I don't know if you realize that, but since he's the patron saint of your family, you may want to tap into some of his, wonderful abilities to help, pay back your family, because that's what the saints do. They love to become friends with those who have honored them. Did you know that about Saint Vincent Ferrer?
I did. I've read the story of his life, and I have a holy card, with me all the time of him, and definitely honor him.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, what did they say? The saints choose us sometimes, and it looks like St. Vincent Ferrer.
They want to be friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Robert. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much. And if you said some of the family members don't know that story, you could always point them to take2show.com, to the archive of today's show, and have them take a listen to that. In the meantime, we're going to go to Jeannie driving through Ohio, listening on Annunciation Radio. Hi, Jeannie.
Hi, Jeannie.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, honey.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel so sorry for that one little lady. She was so sad. We had to say a prayer for her later on today. But anyways, I'm driving to a baseball reunion in South Bend, Indiana, and I live in Cauga Falls. And so you were talking about the relatives, and I'm from Catholic family. I just did relate to what you're saying with him about the children, and what you said, that we try to give them all the sacraments, and we do everything, and we take them to retreats, and we do all these things, and then you feel like you failed when they don't, when they don't continue on with things. But I'll have to not worry about that. But anyways, in my family, do you want me to just start going on about it?
Sure.
My grandmother, her parents came from Ireland. Okay, her mother's name was Mary. Then my grandmother, she had children, so she named my mother Mary, Patricia. Okay, and she named my aunt Jeanette. She named her son that was killed. She had 3 sons that were in the war, and James Joseph was the twin of my Aunt Janie. Okay, so anyways, when my mother got married, who was Mary, she also, before she got married, she was in a convent. She was right to the very end, take her final vows, and my grandmother got sick, so she ended up going back home. So she instead of being a nun, she ended up being home with my grandmother because she was ill, and then she didn't finish to be a nun. But anyway, so my mother was a nun. Her name was Mary. The children, I'm Jean Francis, okay, after my father, all right? And I always hated the name Francis when I was young, Jean Francis. But I am so happy now, as I got older, I love Jean Francis because I love St. Francis. And it's really weird because as I got a lot older, I did a lot of retreats to help a doctor of mine that I used to work with, and I used to be really good at getting a lot of things free. And so I got a lot of donations and did a lot of retreats for the Franciscans here in the Akron area, okay? So I love Gina Francis because of that, because I love St. Francis. And isn't it weird? I mean, I hated the name for so long when I was young, but I love it now. So anyways, so then my children, okay, and then my mother named my brother James Joseph after her brother that was killed in the war, okay? When I had my children older, and so I did a three thing, okay? I named my first daughter Chloe Elizabeth Augusta, and she probably didn't like Augusta, but I named her after my grandmother, who was a wonderful, wonderful person and never found anything bad at all in anyone. And then my other daughter, I named, I wanted to name her something else, but I named her Amanda Brittany Jane. And Jane was after my aunt, who was a professional baseball player. You know, you've probably seen the League of Their Own. She was one of the first people hired for of the teams then. She used to play ball with her three brothers, but she was three. I have a picture of her with the ball in her hand, and that was her thing. You know, and my grandma, she didn't really like it because she said girls shouldn't be playing sports until she got older. But then she accepted it more. But that's what my aunt did. My aunt was a professional baseball player and was hired. You know, Wrigley. You know the whole story about Wrigley. You know, with the girls' baseball, and so that's what my aunt did. So I named my second daughter Amanda Brittany Jane for my aunt, because she was always a really good person, a very good Catholic person, and she was so good with sports, you know, and talking to young people and sportsmanship. So that's how my kids are. They were, you know, it just kind of goes back. So,
wow. Jeannie, you've done a lot of research on this, and I think that's fantastic. And I'm a little bit put to shame because I know actually fairly little about my ancestry and so forth. I have a brother who has gone on one of those genealogy websites and done a lot of that. And I can relate to you on the name thing, you know, not really liking it. I'm sorry to say I didn't really like the name Gerard when I was younger. As I got a little bit older and learned about St. Gerard and how, you know, amazing he was and things he went through and all of that. I think, you know, Debbie, when we get to know, if we're named after a saint, we get to know that saint in his or her life, and it really starts to, you know, resonate in our hearts, and I think we can become a lot more appreciative of the names we've been given.
Absolutely. And there's a relationship established, and you start to identify and you appreciate. And Jeannie, just like appreciating because of your name and being after St. Francis, you know, it's so interesting how we can grow into our names and the understanding of our names. And and I loved how you said that, Jeannie. I have to tell you, as you were speaking about your family story, I was chuckling because my husband received confirmation late in life, and he wanted the name Francis because he loves St. Francis of Assisi, and I forced him to take Anthony because I love Anthony. So I can totally appreciate how when you really fall in love with that saint, and then you want to identify and be friends, and you see that relationship is very important to the saints, but it's very important to God. He wants us to stay connected. That's the key. And when we share stories like this, you know, people may think, well, how does this really pertain to our spiritual life? What you're doing today on Take Two, talking about names? It does. Do you see how we're being connected and how we're identifying with the heavenly realm, and how the body of Christ is coming together? That's what God wants for all of us, union. What do you think, Jeannie?
I think you're right. And I have to say one more thing. I think God puts people in our life at a certain time. I really believe this. When I had my kids older, and our church didn't have retreats for children. Okay, they didn't have it, like with the Franciscan friars. I love the Franciscan friars. Okay, and so my children, when I went to this one job, I met Dr. Ventosa, and he was Catholic too, and we just clicked. And he kind of turned me on to where I could take my children to Steubenville, okay, Ohio, for retreats with the Franciscan friars for maybe 3 days. And so I took the kids to that. And it's just like I think God puts people in our life at a certain time, and I am so thankful that I am. And it's so weird because you're right. I didn't even know it, but then I ended up with all this, the Franciscans, you know, and the people, and doing for them and loving to do for them, and I love St. Francis. So it's really weird how it all works out. You know, it is.
It's beautiful, Jeannie. Absolutely beautiful. And you've shared a beautiful story with us today of your family and the involvement, the friendship of St. Francis and everything else today. So thank you. We appreciate it, Jeannie. You're driving through Ohio. Please be careful there. And thanks for listening to Take Two, being part of the Take Two family and joining our conversation today.
I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'm done.
Okay.
Am I gone? I'm gone, right?
No,
Okay, yeah.
you're okay. Go
We
ahead.
got a lot of calls
I
to
want
get
to
to.
tell
Yeah.
you. I want to tell you that as I'm going to this baseball reunion today, some of the original players are still alive. And Sister Toni Palmaro, now listen to this. She was a baseball player. She started out when she was 14. She got hired. She wasn't even Catholic, okay, but she wanted to be a Catholic. She did this. She ended up at professional baseball. She is a nun. She went to the convent. And she's a Franciscan nun, and she's a good friend of mine. I'm going this year at this reunion, and she does so much good for everybody. And I didn't even know she was a Franciscan. But it's just, I just wanted to share that with you, that she was a nun, and she's 89 years old, okay?
Wow.
And she's still throwing out balls.
Okay, so Jeannie, when you see her, please tell her, to ask her thank her for her vocation, and then ask her if she can pray for the Take Two family intentions, because she obviously has a strong connection to God. So thank you, Jeannie, for sharing that with us. Wow.
Yeah.
See, when you start to uncover these stories, you realize God's plan. And by the way, folks, when you recognize God's plan, when you're aware of God's plan, that's what I'm talking about. When everybody starts to work in cooperation, we serve a God that loves us to cooperate with each other.
Yeah. All right. We have people being very patient today. We're going to get to all of you who called in first. Brian in Dallas is up next, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hello, Brian. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, guys. Yeah, no problem. How are y'all doing?
Doing well. Glad you called.
Okay, so my story is my middle name, George, and my mother gave it to me. I was second born. Everyone else in my family, the firstborn, they all have Thomas. But anyways, my middle name got George. My mom was real close to her father, who was named George, and my uncle's named George. So, that's kind of where we figured out where it came from, and that was the end of the story. My mom passed away 30 years ago. I just figured it came from that. So then I did the ancestry deal. It turns out not only my grandfather, but my great-grandfather was named George. But my great-great-grandfather from him was John. And then, so the George kind of died out there. But then through the ancestry, I saw that John had married Barbara Spiker, who came over from Germany with her 13 siblings. And then, we got into that over in Germany. Turns out her father was named George, and he was born in 1817. So she brought the name over from her father. And it just the whole thing led me to, wonder what they came over here. They all came over. They were all coal miners in Pennsylvania, and they all met up in the 1800s in Pennsylvania. So I learned a little bit about Barbara Spiker and her family, how they fled, why they came over in 1860. She was 12. And just through the history of it all, I learned a little bit about came from the Saar region of Germany, and how that when Germany was trying to unify, there was a backlash against Catholics, because that was on the French side, the Saar land. They came. And so they fled because I guess like I said, I got into the history, and they were part of the Cologne, and the Archbishop of Cologne was arrested. And then, of course, 1870 is when the unification under Otto von Bismarck, and that, they were all Protestants. So they fled. All 15 of them went up to Pennsylvania, and Barbara brought her dad's name, George, with her from the early 1800s, and no one really knew where that came from until I researched it. And, of course, that led me to Barbara, because I kind of feel a special kinship with her now, and I read about St. Barbara and how she was the patron saint of coal miners and artillerymen. And my whole family on my mom's side they were coal miners, even back in Germany. So that's that story of how George got here.
Wow, it's interesting. I was looking as you were talking. I was looking up online a little bit about the etymology of the name, and it means like farmers or working the earth or something like that. Is there any of that, Brian, in your family? Did anyone do that? Or you mentioned coal mining and other things, but I'm just wondering if they had that perhaps that avocation, if you will.
Well, maybe going back, but when they came over from Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Germany, every one of them were either coal mining engineers or coal miners. So I don't know. I assume Barbara was named Barbara because of Saint Barbara and the coal mine connection. That's just an assumption I'm making because Saint Barbara seemed to be much more popular in that era. And she came out of and I've learned that she came out of the eastern part of the Roman Empire, that church, and the Western. They really haven't adopted her, and I don't think she's really been recognized as much as a saint. I don't know how that works, the procedure, but.
Well, Brian, I have to share with you. I love the fact that you traced it back, your family history and legacy, and going all the way back. I love that because there's so much to that. Because sometimes we think, oh, that's in the past, that's gone. These people are gone. Bury the dead. We've heard all that. We've heard all those references in scripture and stuff. But the truth of the matter is our memories are very strong. They're very powerful. There's generational things that happen because of it, and I think it's important that we recognize and we honor what is really good and wonderful and noble and can advance our spiritual growth. And I think by you tracing it back, Brian, you did exactly that. I think it's wonderful. I wish more families would take the time to recognize, how we got here and all the struggles and everything that and the sacrifices that were made in order for us to be talking to each other right now in 2022. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. That's why it's such a miracle that we're even here. And I just love that you did that. I think honoring your family like that is only going to bring you additional blessings here and for all of eternity. I feel that strongly. We need to honor our families because, how do we know that? Because the demons are trying to break up our families. We've got to do the exact opposite. We've got to honor our families.
Good point. Brian, anything else?
Well, no, just to that point, on my father's side, I did the same thing and found out that my great-great-grandparents were thrown into a workhouse in Kildysart, and that's how they came over here. Their son and daughter-in-law came over during the potato famine, and I found the death records of how their parents died in a workhouse. And, you do. I actually went back and over there and found out the church they were married in, and it was just terrible times, and how when I was looking for their gravestone, and what the local historian said that they were buried in an unmarked grave because the family probably didn't have enough money, because there was a Dr. O'Grady who would only give the bodies to the family if they could pay. And when Dr. O'Grady was buried, they put on his headstone, "Not a friend of the poor." So it's just interesting stuff. So, there's a lot of painful experiences when you start looking at how some of these families came over here.
Absolutely. But the sacrifices they made so that you can be here today telling your story, Brian. I mean, pretty amazing when you think about it. God bless you. It sounds like you have a beautiful, strong family, and I love that you are recognizing that. I think this is a great show. We have full phone lines, Jerry, full social media. We've got messages flying in and comments being shared. What should we do, Mr. Usher?
I leave it up to me. I think it calls for a part 2. I don't know about you.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. You guys, it's obvious you love and appreciate sharing your story with this Take Two family, this worldwide platform, and we're here to listen because we love to learn and grow as well, and that's perfect. So let's, you know what? Before we go, we must talk about the rosary. The rosary, boy, everywhere I turn on social media, Jerry, and even on the news, the rosary is being talked about all over the place, and I love it. Keep it going. Hashtag Rosary. I did that on my social media. Jerry got a huge response. So EWTN brings you the Holy Rosary twice each day for over 25 years. Tune in every morning at 5:30 a.m. Eastern for Mother Angelica, and every evening at 9:30 p.m. Eastern for Father Benedict Rochelle, only on EWTN Radio. In case you're interested, Marty and I tune in for the 9:30 p.m. one. I love it.
Beautiful.
Pray the Rosary.
Yeah, so if you're on the line right now and we don't get to you today, you'll be put to the front of the line tomorrow if you're able to call back on a part 2. We will go to Suzanne next, though, in Abilene, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing very well, and I'll try to be real brief. I have a sad story, and I didn't share this part with the call screener, but I also have a happy story about names. I was named Suzanne Elizabeth, and I didn't know anything about it at all. My mother never explained why she named me that or why my parents did. My mother did end up being a single mom, and I never asked. But I was like a lot of kids. At some point, I think when I was a teenager, I decided I didn't like my name, and I felt like I was a Catherine, not a Suzanne. I have since come to love my name, but the sad thing is that, excuse me, my parents divorced when I was very young, maybe 2-3 years old, and he married a woman very quickly. He'd been having an affair, and she had a little girl named Suzanne Vanessa. And it always bothered me that my stepsister had my name. And I never lived with my father. He raised Suzanne, and he adopted her. And a counselor once put it into words that I had an existential crisis because there was another person walking around with my exact name. Our middle names were different. And when a couple of times she sent me a letter, and it would be from Suzanne Bullard to Suzanne Bullard, and it was just weird. And I was very insistent. She went by Sue. I insisted that people call me Suzanne. I was militant about it. I wanted to make sure, especially in my father's family, though I didn't have a lot to do with them, unfortunately, that they knew that I was different from her. And we were also just a year apart. She was born in the first part of January, and I was born in the middle. But when I was in high school, my mother's mother was very sick and in the hospital, and I was visiting her after school. I was driving, and so I drove to the hospital, and she was a little bit rambling, I think because of medication, and she was saying, "They've taken my Suzanne away." And I said, "Nani, I'm here. I'm right here." And that's when I found out that I was named after my mother's parents' only child. My mother was adopted, that had been stillborn. And I was like, wow, I kind of would have liked to have known that earlier. And
You got about 30 seconds, Suzanne.
Okay, at some point, I researched out what it meant. It means a lily consecrated to God. And I thought, okay, my name is really special, and I've learned to love it. The happy story is my ex-husband and I named our son after his father. And people think that's so weird that my son is a second and not a junior.
Wow. Well, what a touching story. We're sorry to hear about your aunt that was stillborn, but here you kind of are living her legacy for her, and you've come to love that name, Suzanne, which is a beautiful name, Suzanne Elizabeth. Thank you from Abilene, Texas, for calling in. We'll do more of this tomorrow.
Absolutely. So if you were on the line, if you're on the line right now listening to us, call back tomorrow. Suzanne, we just heard from Francis, Christine, Sylvia, Rosalie, Leopold. Come on, you guys, call back tomorrow. Just wait about 24 hours. That's all.
Well, our thanks to the show team again, Ace, Jeff, and Matt. Thanks to affiliates. Thank you for carrying the program. For Debbie Georgiani, I'm Jerry Usher, wishing you a beautiful and blessed day. St. Joseph, pray for us. Amen.
The most original Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
This is Father Joseph Mary.